What is system building in business? System building is not about control. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about liberation from the person who actually knows it all. We want to make sure everybody knows it all. You can't scale what only exists in your head. Systems turn knowledge into company assets. By the end of this video, you're going to know what system building is and how it can free you from the chaos that you're feeling right now. So I had the opportunity to play college football way back in the day, like leather helmets, not that long ago, but you get my point. My position in football was the deep snapper. I was referred to myself as the upside down quarterback. Basically, I was the one who threw the ball upside down and backwards 15 yards to the punter before he could go kick it. So I was kind of a quarterback, right? Not really. You get my point. So back in this time, there were really three phases of football. There still are: offense, defense, and sometimes overlooked special teams. And that was me. I was the special teams guy. And what a lot of people see in offense is they score most of the points. Defense is the one that tries to keep the other team from scoring the points. So special teamers are kind of that on the sideline tertiary group of people that come in. But here's what's crazy. They can turn the tide of a game if you're not careful. Systems in your business are the special teams of your business. Everybody talks about the product. Everybody talks about the people. Very few talk about the actual system. Everybody talks about the offense, they talk about the defense, but they rarely talk about the special teams. And so systems are the special teams of your business that we want to make sure are shored up. The best performing teams do not have a gap in their special teams. So let's talk about how you can build solidarity and not have a gap in the special teams of your business, and that is the systems. System building, metaphorically, if I thought about it, is really tribe building is what you're doing. You're creating this sort of tribal knowledge within the culture of your business, and you're starting to scale that tribal knowledge. I'll give you two examples. One, I just ate at last night, Chick-fil-A. When I walked in, got up, did my order, my little salad, my side of fries, just because, I'm eating a salad, so I can afford some fries, right? And I got my drink, and I said, hey, thanks. Well, what was the response from the Chick-fil-A worker? My pleasure. If you go around the world, wherever there are Chick-fil-A's, and you say thank you, they're not going to respond with you're welcome. They're going to respond with my pleasure. Why? Because that's a system within Chick-fil-A. We actually got to tour their headquarters up in Peachtree City in Georgia. And as we walked around the facility, it was a little maniacal, to be honest, because everybody you would talk to, my pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure. You could see in the building, you could feel the cultural relativity in the building of the systematic approach to how they respond to people and engage with people. Just last weekend, we were at a conference in Hawaii. I know, rough gigs, right? And so we were out there, and when we got off the plane, we landed, and we said, hey, and they, aloha. And then we got the rental car. We were about to check out, and they go, hey, aloha. And then we got to the conference, aloha, aloha, aloha. They had clearly communicated with their tribal culture in Hawaii that it's not hello and goodbye. It's aloha and aloha wherever you go. And so nations have the opportunity to create these cultural systems. Businesses have the opportunity to create these cultural systems. What it takes is repetition, predictability, and meaning, and all that lumped under the umbrella of intentionality. So one of the first questions I have to ask you, and you have to ask yourself, is if you're going to build business systems, are you willing to do it with intentionality? Now, we need to understand what's the difference between a system and a process, because there are two differences. So we take the system and then we drop that down into a process. So what a system is this is kind of the macro collection of all these processes. So systems are really made up of a collection of these processes. So when you think about a process, those together are what create the system. So think about the braking system in your car. It's a collection of brake pads and of hydraulics and of lines and of the brake pedal and all of those things. So all those are little processes that make up the bigger part of the system. But the bigger question is, how do we get those processes into form for a system so that we can delegate that and other people can begin to do the work? Because the big challenge that you're trying to figure out is, how do I get all this stuff out of my head, and instead of just hiring people to do, and I've got to babysit them for every little task, I need to be able to set it and forget it. I sound like a rotisserie chicken salesperson, right? Set it and forget it. So how do we do that? All right, so we're going to follow the PTA model. This has nothing to do with elementary school. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify the process. So we actually have to come in the system, whether it be marketing, and so we've got processes like website, social media, outreach, print advertising. All those are processes of the marketing system. Or if you go into the sales system, the follow-up, the sales script, the new client onboarding, all those are processes of the sales system. So in the system, marketing, sales, ops, and admin, those are our four core. We need to first identify the processes. Easiest way to do that, set a timer for 5 minutes on a sheet of paper, put marketing at the top, and just start to brain dump every possible process that you can think of that tells the world, hey, we're here. That's what marketing is. All right, let's say you've got a process that's documented here. In fact, let's get one. So let's call it payroll. You've got your payroll process. Now what we need to be able to do is get that payroll process, because I don't want you doing it every time payroll has to run. I want somebody else doing that. So we've got to get that into the mind of somebody else. So how do we do that? The T is for training. This is the most underutilized part of just about any business. Think about this. A sports team or a military command. When they're not playing a game or fighting a battle, what are they doing? Training. Over and over and over again. But in your business, when's the last time you actually sat down and trained? Well, we did an off-site for 3. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about repetitively, predictably, and meaningfully. I'll tell you, in our business, we have 3 placeholders for repetitive, predictable, and meaningful training. We have a weekly coaches meeting where our coaches go in for 1 hour, 50 weeks out of the year, and we've got intentional training elements within that hour based on the processes that we've identified. We have a marketing and sales meeting, 50 weeks out of every year, where we take marketing and sales processes and we train those. We have a team meeting, 50 weeks out of every year, where we take handbook elements of all the little processes in our business and we train those every single week, drip by drip by drip. So instead of one big crash course over 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, we're going to bring in an outside speaker and a consultant. You can do that. It's fine. But most of that doesn't stick. What sticks is repetitive, predictable, and meaningful, where we can take this process and get it into the head of a person through repetitive, predictable, and meaningful training. So we've got that trained, so we're starting to delegate it. And we can use a little sub point here called model, assist, watch, and leave. So if you want to adequately train somebody on how to do payroll, first you're going to model it for them. Easiest way to do that is anything that happens on computer, just use a screen capture software. Super easy. They're all over the place now, where you can literally click record on your computer and you'll document the process as you're doing the process on there. So you're modeling it for them. You're then going to assist for a few weeks or months to make sure that they understand and they're getting on plane with what they're supposed to do. Then you can watch them do it. So you do a little check-in maybe once a week, once a month, and you just do a little site check of their work. And then eventually you leave and they've got it full bore at that point. So once we've got the process documented, trained, and delegated out to a person, now we need to make sure that there's redundancy with that person, that they're doing it the same way every single time. We call that accountability. And so we want to have the process identification, the training with model, assist, watch, and leave, and then we want to have accountability. Now, for many of you, we look at accountability like somebody looking over our shoulder. You know, they're checking us, call it micromanagement. We don't want to do that. Instead, what we want is we just want to make sure payroll's getting done correctly. That's it. It's no referendum on the person as who they are as a person, their worth, their value, none of that. We're just making sure payroll's getting done right. So I want to give you an example of something that we've done in our business that's super helpful. So we're a business coaching and advisory firm. We work with clients between 3 and 100 employees, and we've got 8 other coaches at the time of this filming. So how do I, the guy who started the firm, get all of the knowledge that's in my head, and it's solely focused on business ownership and coaching and advisory and all of the elements of business, and get that into other people to where they coach it like I coach it? Well, one of the ways is we processed up the majority of that and we train it over and over and over again. But how do we ensure that they're delivering it? Because our coaches, as of to date, do about 50 to 60 one-on-one, 1-hour coaching meetings per week collectively. Well, I can't be on those calls. I can't see what's going on. So how do I know? Well, we leveraged AI. In fact, I've got another video where I talk about AI and systems building, and you can just click on that and link in the description below. And it'll start to walk you through some of the basics of leveraging AI to help build process. And so what we did is we built a coaching call scoring system. Here's how it works. All of our coaches' calls are recorded automatically. They're uploaded automatically into a folder. They are then run through an AI bot or a rubric. So we've identified what an ideal coaching call should include, not word for word, but kind of category by category. And at the end of every week, our coaches get a scorecard, and it shows them how they did. The scorecard's not there so that we can look over their shoulder. The scorecard's there because we want them to coach correctly. And guess what? They want to coach correctly. And so it's a super helpful way that's an objective way, but not a peering way to ensure that accountability is being done. Now that's kind of a cool method to be able to do it, but one of the other methods you can do it is just checking on payroll, spot check on it from time to time, and you can ensure that that's being done correctly. But we've got to identify the process. That's usually where the breakdown happens. And then if we did identify it, the next breakdown point is the training to ensure that we're investing this into other people. And there's a difference between training for delegation, versus abdication. Training for abdication means, hey, I want you to start doing payroll. So go do payroll. That's abdication. Delegation is, I'm going to model, assist, watch, and leave after I've documented the process, and then we're going to recur and talk about this over and over and over again. You're creating business systems at that point. Listen, you are never too small for systems. We want people to start this when they're just a one-person show, because that'll help you get to the second person. And the nice thing about process building and then overall systems building is they compound. You do one, and then you do the second next week, and then you do the third, and by the end of the year, you've got 50, 100 processes, and those compound over time, and they allow you to distribute the work so you can start to scale through the power of systems. But you gotta have the right people. I've got a great video. If you go click on the link in the description below, it'll walk you through how to train new hires to ensure they're equipped and ready for your proper training. So make sure you do that, and at the end of that video, I've actually got a free gift, super powerful. It'll walk you step by step through what that training looks like so that you've got proper accountability around these business systems. Why? You're in chaos, and we want to liberate you from that chaos so that you can make time for the things that matter most.